Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Souter, Slunger Cat Outdoors. It's Tackle Talk Tuesday time. Running a little bit late, a little bit rushed, but we're here. Had a little bit of difficulty with the audio, so let me know in the comments if everything is clear, sounds good, and you can see it fine, because I am trying. I'm trying. But anyway, real quick, I want to thank everybody that had come to the Columbus Fishing Expo over the weekend. Great success. Met a lot of people. Got to talk to a lot of people. Unfortunately, I was not able to record the seminar. I forgot all my stuff at the house. If you guys can hear it, make sure you give me thumbs up or something. Let me know. I got a new mic or whatever you want to call it. And all right, looks good. So anyway, had a great weekend this weekend. Got to do 2 seminars. Like I said, unfortunately, I did not get to record them, but I done a quick search today on YouTube and found them. There's actually 2 different guys that had recorded it. So make sure you go check them out. I didn't get a chance to make sure who they were or get their links to their channel or anything, but if I can remember that, I'll do that tonight. But tonight is like the ending episode of everything Shad, I guess you could call it. We have covered a tremendous amount of information on Shad and where to find Shad and how to find Shad, and you know, this is just kind of going to end it. It's going to be, you know, how to keep shad. Now, I'm sitting on a cooler, and I was going to do the ice slurry thing as well tonight, but I had one of you all ask me a question that intrigued my interest, and I'm going to do a whole nother video just on this tank. He wanted to kind of see if the actual water temperature in the tank or in the cooler dropped once you put salt and water in the solution. And I don't know. So I'm going to actually get everything I need and do that test on that specifically sometime soon, probably maybe next week or this Friday. But tonight, let's get with it. And as usual, we're going to cover some questions, and then we'll get into, I got some products back here on the table, show you guys, what I put in it, how much I put in it. Unfortunately, the weather's supposed to drop, the temperature's supposed to drop back down, and I'm not actually going to fill it up with water, but more so just show you guys how and what all I put in it. And then also I got some other little tricks that might help you guys out along the way. So let's start with Michael. He said, I was wondering how a net falls through the water column with 5-mile-an-hour current in the Missouri River. Have you ever used Bighead Carp for bait? So Michael, to start with, I know exactly what you're talking about. So in rivers or whenever you have quite a bit of current, you throw the net and the net just sweeps down back behind you. So something that you can do to kind of prevent that from happening or help from that happening is whenever you throw it, make sure that you're going with the current. Okay, you want to be whenever you throw that net, you want that net to it's going to drift back, but it's also going to fall at the same time. Okay, now that can make it kind of hard to catch whatever you're trying to catch, but whenever I go to an area that's got a lot of current, say, up in a dam or something behind a bridge pier, something of that nature, when I throw it, whoever's driving the boat will kind of stay right with the net and just let the net fall, as you're drifting back. Now to keep that net open and give you a better possibility of catching, whatever you're trying to catch. As far as Bighead Carp, yes, I have, I have used them. Especially whenever I go out on the lower Ohio River, lower Mississippi River. I use them quite a bit and have good success with it. One of them that I like more than the other is the little silver carps that, you know, say they're about the same size as a decent sized skipjack, I really have, you know, more luck with those than I do the big head. I guess the jumping carp is what I'm talking about. Rick, he asks, he says, I have shoulders that are useless, no good at all. It says I can't throw a throw net. 2 questions. Frozen shad from a bait shop, is it worth buying? Second is there any lure that I can catch shad on? Specifically talking about gizzard shad, Rick, no. I've seen people snag them, but as far as legitimately throwing out there, reeling, and, you know, catching them like you would skipjack, no. Bait from a bait store, if it is a small bait store that gets bait in fresh, that's from a reputable bait dealer, yes, yeah, you know, if that's the best you can do, absolutely, that's the freshest bait you can get. Now, in that situation, I would actually, maybe recommend that you use something else, for instance, bluegill or skipjack or carp or something that you can catch. That's going to be the freshest bait that you can have. But if you can't do that, then obviously, yeah, that bait is good. Something else that I would recommend is find a local bait dealer that actually catches the bait, and a lot of times those guys are more than willing to help you out. As far as, especially if you're somebody that wants to go fishing but can't really catch the bait. I know if I was in the area, I would definitely help you out as much as I could. So, look them up. Leave me a message of the area that you're at, and if I know of any reputable bait dealers in that area, make sure I'll make sure and send them your contact information. Also, real quick, if this is one of the first times that somebody in this is actually watching, this is your first time to this channel, please remember to hit subscribe. We put out new videos every week. We also do this Tackle Talk Tuesday every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And make sure you're leaving those questions in the comments. This is where I get the information for these videos and also the Video Viewer Fridays. So make sure you're leaving those questions. Make sure you're giving the thumbs up if you like the information we're putting out. Randy Roberts. He asked, can you speak on what settings you use your fish finder to make it the easiest way to show shad and what they look like on your graph? Also, do I believe that it's worth the extra effort to put freshly caught shad in a slurry mix instead of just on ice? Randy, so whenever it comes to settings, I'm planning on doing another series as far as the Video Viewer Fridays go, and that's going to be specifically on sonars, and that's going to take a lengthy amount of time. But real quick, to touch on your question, I try to leave things as close to auto or normal that I can, and then I learn what those things look like from there. As far as what shad look like on that graph, I'll look for them mainly on the structure side and the 2D side. So on the structure side, the way I have mine set up, they'll look like maybe a white cloud or just a group of small fish grouped up in a small circle or cloud, one side of the boat or the other. Now on the 2D, whenever you go directly over top of them, depending on their size, you might see little tiny arches, or you might see just like a cloud of blue specks or red specks, depending on their size and whether they're threadfin or a gizzard shad or like crappie. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit, Randy. And do I think it's worth the extra effort to put that freshly caught bait in that slurry instead of just on ice? Absolutely, I do. Now, once again, like I've stressed, I don't want to leave it in there so long that it gets extremely hard, hard as a rock. If you leave it in there too long, to me, it completely freezes it, and I don't want completely frozen, frozen bait. So there's like a there's like a happy medium, and hopefully I'll be able to touch on that, you know, some more whenever we do the video just on the cooler and the slurry itself. It says, please explain how freshwater fish, shad, survive in a saltwater bait tank. Okay, Michael. So whenever you think of, and we're going to touch more on this in just a minute, you know, as far as what salt and how much. When we add salt to the tank, we're not adding such an amount that the volume of salt in that tank is like salt water. We're putting such a small part, you know, we want it to be like 0.1% to 0.3% parts per million, to where actual salinity in salt water is more like 30,000 parts, you know, per million. And there's a lot of, you know, mathematical equations that you can go and search and get that, but the amount of salt that we're putting in is such a low amount that, you know, you don't have to worry about it actually becoming salt water. Jeremy Smith, can you catch shad on rod and reel or just cast net? Just cast net. You know, I have, like I said before, I have seen people snagging them, you know, with little treble hooks and things like that at locks and dams, but mainly cast net, okay? Skip Martin, if I have an Ohio license and am casting for bait in the Ohio River, is it like rods that I can use a bigger net? So one thing to keep in mind, Skip, is that West Virginia actually, you know, has a smaller net size than Ohio, okay? Now, if, you know, so in Ohio, you know, with an Ohio license, you'd want to throw in Ohio waters and Ohio backwaters. Now, if you go into West Virginia backwaters, we need to remember that we have to have a West Virginia license, and you have to follow West Virginia laws as far as, you know, cast net size and things like that. Now, West Virginia is trying to change that law and make it and pass it to where they can use a bigger cast net, and hopefully they do. That'd be great. Now, when we get into start talking about Kentucky, you would want to have a Kentucky out-of-state license as well to be able to, you know, one, have a net that size, and two, be able to throw it legally and not get yourself in a real big fix or mess. Let's see, Jerry B. It says, he's talking about wanting me to touch on common bait like bluegill, carp, and the differences in them and the bait that we've already covered. So Jerry, when it comes to bluegill and carp, they're good baits. You know, what we're talking about, you know, right now, Shad, and I guess the reason I'm talking about it so much, you know, right now is, you know, shad is really prevalent bait fish, you know, all throughout the country. You know, just about anywhere you go, there's shad. So I'm trying to cover as much of that information for as many people as I can. But, you know, bluegill is another extremely good bait. You know, carp is another extremely good bait, whether it's common carp, Asian carp, or bighead carp. You know, those are good baits as well. And a lot of these, you know, the bait tips that we're giving can come, you know, straight back to those baits as well, whether it be you're putting, you know, like the carp in a slurry, or you're keeping a bluegill alive in a tank. You know, obviously bluegill are not nearly as, you know, hard to keep alive as shad are, but, you know, they can be kept alive, you know, very easily in a tank. So, there we go. So moving on. Shad notes and shad tips. So what I did is there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to cover today, and so I had to take notes. I was, you know, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I wanted to, you know, cover as much as I possibly could and give you guys as many tips as I could. So I made sure and write notes tonight. So to me, one of the biggest things when it comes to, keeping shad and keeping healthy shad, live, there's two differences. There's a live shad, and then there's healthy live bait. Okay, there's a huge difference whenever you're fishing with it, the way it acts in the water, the way it swims, and just a huge difference on whether it's are attracted to it. Okay, so one of the things that I want to cover a lot of is water quality. Okay, you got to have good water quality and a good volume, and that makes a difference on whether your bait stays alive or it ends up dead. Okay, and there's four things that I feel that make the difference on water quality, and it's pretty simple stuff. It's aeration, circulation, filtration, and temperature. So to think about it, shad pull oxygen through their gills. So we got to have that aeration is an absolute must. We got to have good aeration in that water. But we have to have that circulation, for that water to flow, for them to be able to swim, naturally, and that water to flow through their gills. Okay, once we put them into the tank. So we want a good flow, but we don't want a hard flow. We want a soft, gentle flow, good aerated water that is filtered. That's got a good filtration system on it, and that's just going to be if you make it to where they have too much current, then those shad are going to have to swim harder, which means that they're going to burn up more oxygen. Okay, so a good gentle flow of oxygenated filtered water is absolute a must. Now temperature, something I hear a lot of people talk about is putting ice in bait tank in a bait tank, cooling water off, keeping temperature of a tank. Anytime we think of water, if you can cool water off, one, it'll hold more dissolved oxygen, okay, and two, the fish that are in it will not use as much oxygen. But we have to remember that if we have cool water in here and we throw them into hot water, then that's going to be a shock. So we want to be careful with, if we're trying to cool the tank off, we don't want it to cool off and get hot. Cool off and get hot. That's going to be stressful on them, and we don't want to shock them. Okay, so to me personally, and this is what I do, if I am going to fish a tournament, I may go out and catch bait. If I'm going to fish a tournament, let's say this Saturday, I'll go out and start catching bait, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night if I have to. And that bait's going to be here in my garage, in the tank, swimming. So what I normally do is the night before I'm getting ready to go to the tournament, I'll put this tank in the boat. I'll fill it up, go through all the chemicals, and I'll let it run, okay? And then the next morning I put that bait out of the garage into the boat, and it's good. So I personally do not add ice unless it's just an absolute have to must thing, okay? Because you can only, you don't want to, with just a couple degrees is all you need that to stay within there. So if you lower it a couple degrees and it comes a couple degrees high, then you're fluctuating that too much, and you're doing more harm than really good. Okay, ammonia. Ammonia that's a bad word. Ammonia is something that, so when we think about what ammonia is from, basically what the shad deposit, it's their waste and their poop and everything. So we catch the bait, we throw it in the tank, and they start puking, regurgitating, pooping. It's all from stress, okay? We got to get that cleaned out. We have to have a good filtering system to get that out. Now, a couple other ways that you can, kind of help with that is doing maybe a half tank water change, to kind of get that water out. Another way is to use, this is called Ammonia Rocks. Okay, you can buy them at pet stores. And also something that I've been trying to do, all this stuff that we're going to go over and I'm going to show you is already in the links. So make sure you go check them out. It's direct links to everything that I use in these tanks. So these ammonia bags work, they help. They're just like little bags of white rocks, and they help kind of absorb the ammonia, and you can put it right in the filtering, the back compartment of the filtering box, and I'll show you guys kind of where I keep mine at here in a minute. But those are so that's that touches on the ammonia that the fish are gonna make once they're in the tank. Okay, now once you get them in there and you get them cleaned out, let's say after a day, that ammonia should start to dissipate a little bit for you. Surface foam. Now surface foam is caused by the ammonia. That's and you'll get surface foam in here. Okay, and just like the ammonia, the way I was talking before, you can do half water changes to kind of help get that bad water or toxic water, however you want to say it, out, get that ammonia out, and help regulate it that way. But you can also, temporarily, this is foam off. Now I just have it in a little tiny spray bottle, and I just kind of, spritz a couple spritzes on it, and it'll, automatically just get rid of that foam on the top of the water, so that, it can mix. The water in your tank can mix with the air outside of it. That's called foam off, and it comes in a, like I said, it's all in the links in the description, so make sure you guys are checking that out. Salt. Let's see, wait a minute here. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay, yeah, salt. Let's talk about salt. That's a big old bag of salt. So, you guys can see that. I'm getting weak in my old age. That is it's Morton's. You can kind of see they're all natural, water softening salt crystals. You can get them in a couple different places. Lowe's normally sells them. I think that 40-pound bag is under $10, so it's a pretty good deal. So that's the salt that I use in the tank. And one thing to keep in mind, with salt, make sure that you're giving it time to dissolve. You want to make sure that you give it time in the tank. And make sure that we're not, putting too much in. Now, earlier I had a question of how a freshwater fish can live in a saltwater tank. So like I mentioned before, the amount of salt that we're putting in it is going to be like 0.1% to 0.2%, 0.3%, and that's parts per million, very, very, very little, very low amount. So that's going to do a couple things. It's going to help the fish whenever you put the shad in there, first off, it's going to help not stress it out, but help it soften the effects of it getting stressed out, okay? And it's also going to help harden the scales on the fish, and also help keep its slime coat on, any slime coat that was pulled off or drug off from the net or handling of the shad. It's going to help get those baits back to where they need to be. And they also take in salt as well. As they for their body biochemistry stuff, way over my head. But they also need that salt themselves. Okay, so a little low amounts of salt in these tanks is a great thing. But you can put too much salt in it. And I always, keep with the equation of like 1 cup per 10 gallons. Or this 35 gallon, it actually holds, roughly around 40 gallons, 42 gallons, something like that. I put, a little over 3 cups of salt in this tank. And that does me wonderful. So now, that kind of stuff is covered. Make sure that if any of that I just covered, make sure that you're leaving those questions in there. I wish that I could go back through and answer all of them now, but we still got a bunch of stuff to cover, so I want to keep going. But I will go back and answer those questions in the comments. This is absolutely a lifesaver to me. As you guys know, I absolutely love catching shad, love fishing with shad. If it's got to do anything with shad, I love it. If it eats shad, I'd like to catch it. But this is a 35-gallon Extreme. Now, when we talked about filtering systems, this is what's called the filter socks. Now, you can see I've got a couple different socks on here. It's more of like a trial and error thing. I've been testing, trying different things out. But we talked about the ammonia bags. So one thing I like about these filter socks, not only are they absolutely great at filtering, all the nasty stuff that those fish puke up and everything else that's going to be in that tank, but you can add these ammonia rock bags to it. You can add charcoal. You can add, just about anything you want inside these bags, and that's going to help keep that ammonia down, help filter the water, and just make it the best possible water we can. Oh, before I forget it, I said there was a few little tips along the way. Something, when it comes to salt, a lot of you guys are going to be fishing tournaments like I do. We want to pack. You got to have enough salt, not only for the tank that you got that you're using, but you want to make sure in case you need water changes or you need something happens and you lose all your water, you can refresh everything. These little coffee jars, I think this is like a gallon jar, works great to keep that salt in. Keeps it dry. You don't have to carry an empty bag or an open bag around. So, like I said, that right there, that 1 gallon will usually do, I think, 3 tanks. So I can keep that with me, and if I go somewhere and I'm 5, 6, 7, 8 hours away from home, I got enough salt to do 2 or 3, 4 more tanks. All right, so we was talking about the filtering, and we was talking about the bags, and you can add anything to it. So once you fill, let's put this back in here. All right, so the water goes down through the drains. It comes up through the 2 standpipes that come right here into the filter socks, and then the water drains out of here back down into the pumps, where there is 2 750 gallon an hour bilge pumps with Dancos hooked to them, aerating and doing that soft, gentle flow for those shad to have that nice flow through their gills of good oxygenated water. So now wiring. This tank is actually going to a new home here this coming weekend. So somebody's going to be a happy camper here real soon. So I just put alligator clips on this one, and he can put on whatever type of plug that, you know, he wants. You know, those are just alligator clips, but I would recommend that whenever you do your wiring, make sure you give yourself plenty of wire. These tanks come with a light switch, so that when you're fishing at night, you can see your bait down in. They actually have a window on the lid, so you can just flip the light on, look down in, make sure your bait's good, healthy, swimming. If you can see that tube there, there's one on each side. That is where the Dancos suck their air in to oxygenate it back into the water. If you don't know what a Danco aeration system is, just do a search. They are by far, in my opinion, the best type of, you know, aeration that there is. It's kind of like a Venturi, but it's like a souped up Venturi on, you know, on drugs. So yeah, that covers that. If you guys have any questions about these tanks, make sure you're asking. Make sure you hit me up if you're interested in pricing. They're running a deal right now for all you guys that are going to the Catfish Conference. If you buy a tank, you can get a extreme cutting board free, or you can get a $100 off of the new oxygen box. And for you guys that don't know what the oxygen box is, it is basically the same technology as far as aeration that is in the bait tanks, and filtering, but it's just in a nice little compact box where you can put it in any live well. Keep it on your boat for like a spare in case something happens to your pumps that are in your live well, or keep it in there in case you know somebody that if somebody's in trouble, you can pull this out of your boat, put it in their boat, and save their fish. You know, today's day and age, we need to do as much as we can to help each other and make sure that we're helping the fish along the way. So now it's time to cover kind of what goes in the tank, and I get a lot of questions on what all I put in the tank, how much I put in it. So that's what we're going to cover now. So to start with, and if you guys can hear that, we're getting one heck of a storm right now. So this is 2 cup measuring cup up to that line. Up to the top is 3 cups. I put one of these and another about another 3/4 of a cup in of the salt. Okay, and I just dump it straight in. That's the first thing I do. I put my salt in, and then I put my water. And now I use straight tap water from my house. I live in a little town. It's just city water. It is chlorinated. It does have chlorine in it. It is going to be cooler than in the summer. So you got to kind of be careful with that. I haven't had too much trouble throwing shad straight into it. From letting it mix up here and then heading to someplace and catching shad and throwing it straight in here in the summer when the rivers are 70, 75, close to 80 degrees. They will go in and they might start swimming funny to start with, but they normally come out of it and have no problem. So first thing I do is I add my salt, okay, and then the next thing I do is I'm going to fill it up with water. Most of these tanks will have a recommended fill line on them. Just follow those instructions. Next thing that I'm going to add is Stress Coat. It's actually Stress Coat Plus. Okay, you can buy this at most pet stores, and like I said before, this stuff is in the comments. I made sure left links directly to this stuff, so you guys, if you guys want to buy this before you forget about it, you can go there and get it. And it's simple. You're not going to be able to see them, I don't think. But anyway, simple instructions on the back. The nice thing about these are they come with a little measuring cup. These little measuring cups are 10 ml. And let's see what it says here. It says 1 ml per gallon of water. So, for this tank here, I'm going to put 4 capfuls in that tank. So that will take care of your water. This also has like aloe vera and other, additives in it to help give those fish what they need, while they're in there. It just helps detoxify heavy metals and get rid of all the chlorine and everything else that is in there, and helps those fish whenever they go in there and they're stressed to kind of calm down and be the best bait that they can possibly be, because that's what we need. Good fresh bait. Other than that, the only thing I do to it is, I have the Ammonia Rocks in the filters, but I have my foam off in my little spritz bottle, okay? And I don't overkill it. If one little spritz of the foam off, and what I do is I will mix the foam off, do a 50-50. So half of it foam off, half of it water, and mix it up. It lasts a little bit longer and it does just as good of a job. So I'll just spritz the top of it, that foam will disappear, and I only do it as needed, okay? So, okay, that covers the, how we set the tank up. So fill it up, make sure you're letting things run long enough to get everything dissolved. If it's super hot, let the tank run maybe overnight to kind of let the temperature fluctuate just a little bit and kind of level out. Now these tanks are double walled, like a air insulation between them. Like I said, they, super good tanks. They've made my life absolutely great. Being able to go catch bait 3-4 days ahead of time, bring it in here, put it in the garage, shut the door, and leave it. So now, okay, so these tanks also come with a filter box. Just like the filter socks, these just have a filter that slides down in, and the water comes up through the the standpipes there, and then drains out these holes here, leaving everything else in the box. Either way is good. Me personally, I prefer the filter socks, because once everything is in the sock, there's not a whole lot of chance of it coming back out. Okay. So we was talking about keeping bait in the garage. I have a lot of people ask me, well, how many batteries do you have to continuously run these tanks? Continuously, like say 3, 4, 5 days. Do you switch batteries out? No, I don't. So here's a tip for you guys that want to have one of these tanks and want to. And this, I guess this is kind of for any 12-volt pump that you have. Okay, it doesn't have to be just one of these tanks. It can be any tank or any pump that is 12 volts that you want to keep running at your house, that you don't want to have to hook up a battery to it constant. So what I did was, that's just a cheap manual battery charger. It is like literally the cheapest battery charger that you can buy. It's on the front there, you can see it's got 6 volts 6 amps, 12 volts 2 amps, and 12 volts 6 amps. So what I do is I put it on 12 volts 6 amps, and then on like where the alligator clips would be for your battery, to put them on your battery to charge it, I just put a male and female double wire connector, and then I have the other one on the tank. You just plug this into your tank, plug that into your wall, and that tank will run as long as you want it to run. Okay, I think that battery charger cost me like $11. I think it was at. I think I had to go to like a Napa or something to actually be able to find a manual battery charger, because an automatic won't do it. You know, automatic has to have so many volts before it'll kick on and take notice it's hooked to a battery. One of these manual ones won't. It works great, you know, as a power inverter or converter. So that's that. Let's see. I've had a lot of people, you know, talking to me. You know, they say, "Man, that's a nice tank. Why don't I have a drain in it?" Well, you know, one, it's double walled, you know, and you don't want to sacrifice the structure of the tank, you know, by putting a drain in it. And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about it a lot. You know, the Gary lines that I used to run, they had drains in them, and you know something, you know, even though it had a drain in it, I stopped using it, and I don't recommend anybody that is going to put, you know, salt or, you know, chemicals in this to pull the plug and drain it in the back of your truck or in your boat. I actually ended up having rust spots in my bed where I would pull the plug on it, you know, let that water drain out of my bed. It actually rusted the inside of my bed, and then it ran out onto my hitch of my truck and actually started rusting it as well. So, you know, me personally, even if it had a drain, you know, I wouldn't pull it and let it drain out into the bottom of the boat or the truck, just because of the amount of salt that's in it, and you know, getting that salt water, you know, on my truck and things like that. But what I do is, you know, this is just a cast net bucket that, you know, from using a cast net, and I like to keep all this stuff kind of, you know, separate for its own thing. That way I can put it, you know, stored away in a boat, in a compartment, and you know, everything's nice and neat. But anyway, this is just my pump that I use not only to take with me to tournaments in case I gotta fill the tank up, but also to empty the tank out, you know. So what I did was, this is a 500-gallon pump, okay? Just got some alligator clips on the end of it. And on this end of it, I actually put a little piece of hose and a fitting. That way I could screw in a hose. Now, this hose is one of those, I forget what they're really called, but they kind of expand. This is called a pocket hose, but it's actually like 50 foot, you know, so it'll like stretch out, you know, as this thing builds up pressure. So it gives me the option to pump that water away from my boat, away from my truck and trailer. And not only that, if I have to, you know, I have, you know, for you guys that are fishing tournaments, you know, you got to have a hose if you go to a hotel. So this is, you know, a hose for that. This is a 50-foot hose. Everything, you know, curled up, nice and neat inside this bucket. Now you can see, and this is just a small 2-gallon bucket, but you know, everything's nice and neat inside that, and you're going to have a hose if you plan on fishing. I don't know what that comment was about, but anyway, so you would definitely have to have some, you know, a water hose to get water if you're at a hotel, or if you need to refresh your tank, you know, out on the water. You can do water changes easily with that. So anyway, that's about all we have for tonight. Hopefully I was able to cover all of your your information, you know, your questions that you may have had, be able to, you know, answer any of those. If you have any any more questions, make sure you're leaving them in the comments. Next week we will probably. I had a question of doing, kind of touching on how to get sponsors. So next week we will probably do that. I'll probably take a week from bait and kind of touch on sponsorship stuff, how to get sponsors, how to approach things, things like that. And then the next week, just to give you guys an idea, we're going to pick right back up and we're going to jump into skipjack and the slurry. Make sure I'm going to get all the stuff together to do that slurry. I'm interested to do that test, but anyway, hope you guys enjoyed tonight. I enjoyed this Tackle Talk Tuesday. Make sure you're leaving comments make sure you're leaving questions in the comments. Make sure you're subscribing. Give me a thumbs up if you like the information that you're getting. And until next week, we'll catch you on the water. God bless.